So where back in 1900 it was junior colleges and William Ramey Harper's concept, then in California expanded to be more than the connection to the university and more connection to occupational education and university. And then Truman's concept and his commission, which said we need community colleges, places of higher education in all of our local communities, center of education, center of learning in our local communities. In 1907 was when there was legislation that was established that allowed for local public schools to have the first 2 years of the university education. So 1900, Joliet starts the first junior college connected to the University of Chicago. We then look at 1907 as the start of legislation that says, let's allow the public schools to have the first 2 years. And then it was in 1917 that legislation was passed that said, not just the first 2 years of a university education, but you also can provide occupational education. And then we went on to 1921 when there was a decision made that rather than be connected to a public school, local communities could establish their own community college district. And so for a number of years, several decades, some colleges stayed connected to their public schools and other community colleges were established strictly as community college districts. Well, we have a story to tell, and we need to tell it over and over again. We are relatively new. And 1900 is not that far back when we were established, when our universities and our private colleges go back to the very founding of our country. Proposition 13, some might cite as the biggest challenge to us, because that's the point at which no longer were local boards given the authority to establish local property tax rates that would allow the colleges to determine what they wanted to look like to serve their local community. And that shifted a lot of decision making to the state legislature and caused a lot of push for more powerful state system and a control of a board of governors. So that's the value, the state board providing general parameters and support, but local colleges through their elected board and through their faculty and staff and administrative leadership saying, but this is what my community needs, which is different than others. Back to the Truman Commission, the center, the local community center of higher education and learning. I came to head the Community College Trustees Association, which ultimately merged with another organization and became the Community College League of California in 1990. And I think that is, from my perspective, and this is selfish, I think that is one of the key points and one of the turning points for the community colleges in the state of California. And that is the establishment in 1990 of these several organizations as one that brought the college presidents and the community college trustees together in a leadership role, which is exactly what they are locally, and said, we're going to be about advocating for the needs of the local community colleges. We're going to be about educating our trustees and CEOs so they can be the best leaders to serve their community and state, and be constantly working with the State Board of Governors and Chancellor's Office on finding common solutions to issues. And I'm very proud of where the Community College League has gone since our early start, and a lot of ups and downs as to what it should look like and how it should be governed. But it never lost its focus on how can we best assure the local community colleges, working with our State Chancellor's Office, are benefiting the local communities and our state, and that we are, to the best degree possible, speaking with one voice. Now 114, I think when I started it was more like 101 or 2, but that is something that I think has to be considered in the history of the community colleges of California, and that is the role that the state associations and now the Community College League have played in leadership So when it came time for the legislature to look at developing a new master plan for higher education in the 80s, the Community College League took the lead. I had the opportunity to serve as the chair of a group of representatives of the faculty unions, the Faculty Academic Senate, the classified staff, the Administrators Association, students, to develop some guidelines for the legislature to look at in terms of what the community colleges should look like, what our mission should be, how we should be governed. And you oftentimes hear reference to AB 1725, which was major legislation that I think was very beneficial to defining governance, to redefining and I think emphasizing the value of our comprehensive community college mission, providing a real focus on the diversity of our faculty and staff. And so that's something that I think should never be left out of any history of our community colleges, and that is how we came together in a voluntary way to help provide the leadership that is very important from the local to the state and providing that balance. So AB 1725 was major legislation developed through approximately a 2.5 year period where the legislature made a determination it wanted to review all of higher education, and it was going to start, however, with a focus on community colleges. And then once they had defined what the community colleges should be about, they would then study the universities and bring together the whole of a new master plan for higher education. But the focus initially was community colleges. Ultimately, that work by a Citizens Commission resulted in Assembly Bill 1725. Its leader author was John Vasconcellos, and the legislature studied and worked with us and ultimately came up with a many hundreds page bill which dealt with every aspect of the community college, what our mission was and should be, who the students are that we should be serving, what our governance structure should look like, the state board's role, the local governing board's role, how we should be financed, how we should deal with making sure we had diversity in our faculty and staff in terms of the hiring processes. All aspects of the community college were addressed in that bill. And that's a bill that also included the shared involvement of the faculty, staff, and students in decision making, something that many colleges had done and something that was familiar in the universities with the faculty having a strong role in decision making in terms of academic matters. But this was the first time it was spelled out. I often joke that only in California would we legislate collegiality. It's like legislating you'll have a good marriage, but it really formed the basis for our community colleges, I think, making better decisions because we really were expected to assure that the faculty, the staff, and the students had an involvement before we as college presidents and our vice presidents and the governing board made decisions. The more people involved helped make better decisions, and I think it's worked well.